Hi, I'm Nikki Hurst, and I'm going to be talking about trustworthiness. The idea of trustworthiness was formally introduced in the literature by Egon Guba in 1981. He authored a hallmark paper entitled Criteria for Assessing the Trustworthiness of Naturalistic Inquiries. This paper was the first attempt to codify the safeguards that introspective scientists were already applying to their qualitative inquiries to ensure quality. Over time, the scientific community has refined these criteria, which can be used to judge the merit of qualitative work. Trustworthiness is a marker of good qualitative research. We assess trustworthiness to see if qualitative research meets a quality standard agreed upon by the scientific community. A trustworthy study is likely to have results that reflect what is going on in the real world. In quantitative research, we assess validity, reliability, and objectivity to see if a study has merit. Because the nature and purpose of qualitative research is different from quantitative research, we cannot apply the same standards of quality assessment. Instead, we use trustworthiness. The reason why we use different standards is because qualitative and quantitative research is conducted in different paradigms of inquiry. Qualitative research is conducted in a naturalistic paradigm, and quantitative research is conducted in a rationalistic paradigm. A brief review of some of the differences in these paradigms can help frame a discussion of the differences in quality measures. To start, naturalistic and rationalistic paradigms differ on their assumptions about reality. A rationalistic paradigm assumes that there is a single reality and that research can converge on a single truth about this reality. In contrast, a naturalistic paradigm assumes that there are multiple realities and that inquiry will diverge as more information is known. Second, the two paradigms also differ in their assumptions about the nature of the relationship between the observer and the object of inquiry. A rationalistic paradigm assumes that the researcher can maintain a distance from the object or phenomena being studied. An effort to maintain independence between the observer and the observed is attempted to limit influence. On the other hand, a naturalistic paradigm rests on the assumption that the inquirer and respondent cannot be separated, and that each will influence the other. Third, the two paradigms view truth differently. Let's define truth as being in accordance with fact or reality. In a rationalistic paradigm, it is assumed that generalizations are possible, that enduring truth statements that are context-free exist and can be discovered. The opposite is true in the naturalistic paradigm. In this paradigm, it is assumed that generalizations are not possible because multiple truths can exist at the same time, and therefore a single unifying truth cannot be concluded. Finally, the methods and source of theory that are generally used in the naturalistic and rationalistic paradigm differ. Rationalistic researchers usually use quantitative methods. They tend to start with a hypothesis and then use the deductive method to test the hypothesis. In contrast, naturalistic researchers tend to use qualitative methods, and theory emerges from the data collected during the study. The rationalistic and naturalistic paradigms differ in other ways, but I think these are the key differences to mention in order to understand trustworthiness. Now let's turn our discussion to the components of trustworthiness that the scientific community has generally agreed upon as indicators of quality quantitative or qualitative work. The idea of trustworthiness is composed of criteria that one can use to assess qualitative research. The scientific community has agreed upon 4 aspects of trustworthiness that should be examined in order to assess the quality of work. The way in which we think about these quality checks differs depending on the paradigm in which one is operating. This table is my modification of Table 1 in Guba's 1981 paper that I mentioned earlier. The first column lists 4 aspects of trustworthiness which can be assessed. The middle column shows how these aspects might be evaluated in the rationalistic paradigm. The last column shows how it might be considered in the naturalistic paradigm. This table demonstrates equivalent criteria used to evaluate the quality of qualitative and quantitative research. Truth value reflects how confident you are in the truth of the study's findings. In quantitative research, we determine truth value by checking the internal validity. Internal validity is established by choosing a valid instrument to measure the phenomenon and by the elimination of confounding variables, so that you have a high confidence that only the one independent variable affects the result. In contrast, in qualitative research, truth value is achieved if you are confident that the truth description or interpretation is accurate. This accuracy is required within the study design, for the study subjects, and within the context of the study. One could ask, does the research represent the multiple realities that exist? Credibility is established if the findings can be tested among a group of people familiar with the phenomenon being studied. Sandalowski, a qualitative research expert, proposed that the qualitative study is credible if people who have shared an experience would immediately recognize the descriptions of the human experience. How does one establish credibility in a qualitative study? Strategies such as the adoption of research methods well established in qualitative investigation, triangulation, and member checks are the primary ways to establish credibility. Applicability refers to whether the study findings can be applied to other situations, contexts, or with other subjects. In quantitative research, we establish applicability by showing that a study is generalizable. Generalizability is established by conducting research in such a way that threats to external validity are minimized. The researcher aims to prevent time, context, and situational variation from affecting the study findings. If this is achieved, the findings can be relevant in any context. In contrast, qualitative research holds that rationalistic generalizations are not even possible because the phenomenon being studied are intimately tied to the time, context, and situation. Generalizability is neither desired nor achievable. Instead, qualitative research aims to achieve transferability. If the findings can be applied to contexts, situations, or populations which are similar to that in which the study was conducted, then transferability is achieved. Proving transferability is the burden of the person interpreting and applying the findings to another context, but it is only achievable if the original researcher provides sufficient descriptive data to allow comparison. The degree of fit can be determined by thick descriptions or detailed descriptions of the context. One can also use purposive sampling, a form of non-probability sampling in which research subjects are chosen specifically because they have characteristics related to the research question. Okay, consistency is a third criterion for trustworthiness. It refers to whether repeating the study with the same subjects and in the same context would yield similar results. In quantitative research, consistency is proven by showing repeatability. If the study were conducted with the same subjects and in the same context, would the findings be the same? In contrast, qualitative research assumes that variability exists within the research, the study subjects, and the context. Therefore, qualitative research aims to show dependability. Dependability is the ability to identify and track the sources of variability. For example, one would assume that examiner learning, subject fatigue, or changes in the situation might change results. Additionally, variability can be expected because qualitative research includes the whole range of experiences rather than just the average experience. If your study is dependable, then another person could use the information in your report to replicate your study, and they would obtain similar findings as your study did. Essentially, they could follow your recipe and bake the same bread pudding. Methods to ensure dependability include empowerment of overlapping methods, inquiry, audit, and in-depth methodological description to allow the study to be repeated. The final measure of trustworthiness that I'd like to discuss today is neutrality. I define neutrality as freedom from bias. In quantitative research, neutrality is achieved by maintaining objectivity and minimizing influence. One does this by using rigorous methods, establishing reliability and validity, and maintaining distance between the researcher and study subjects. The researcher should use instruments that make appropriate and accurate measurements. Randomization should be used where appropriate. In contrast, qualitative research tries to achieve confirmability by reducing the distance between the researcher and the study subject. This is done to reduce the likelihood of bias influencing the findings. Prolonged contact times, close contact, triangulation, reflexivity, confirmability audit, and in-depth methodological description are methods used to achieve confirmability. To summarize, qualitative and quantitative research is conducted within two very different paradigms. Differences in these paradigms influence how we conduct research in a quality way. Four measures of quality have been established, and the way these are measured differ for qualitative and quantitative research. For qualitative research, one attempts to establish credibility, transferability, dependability, and confirmability in order to establish trustworthiness. These are my resources. Thank you very much.